10 legendary vehicles have left such a permanent mark on American highways that they transitioned from simple industrial tools into true icons of engineering history. Why are some of these massive machines nearly impossible for modern collectors to locate even in the most prestigious museums? The answer lies in their specialized production cycles and the brutal environments they were designed to conquer, which eventually claimed most of the original fleet. At first glance, these trucks might look like standard transport, but in reality, they shape the very infrastructure of the 20th century. Rare models continue to spark intense admiration from classic enthusiasts who track the few surviving chassis left in existence. One can notice how the polished chrome and heavy steel frames of these survivors reflect a different era of manufacturing. But this is just the beginning. The search for these mechanical giants reveals a narrative of rugged power and distinctive aesthetic choices that defined a generation. Automated restoration processes and manual craftsmanship are currently the only ways to preserve these engines that still seem to vibrate with the force of their original horsepower. Everything only gets more complicated when considering the specialized parts required for their maintenance. It is visible how the iconic designs of the cabs were built with a level of durability meant to withstand millions of miles of continuous operation. Each machine represents a specific technical milestone in the evolution of heavy-duty hauling. The process is only gaining momentum as the technical specifications of these 10 rarest and most legendary American trucks are uncovered. Rugged components and powerful engines characterize these historical artifacts of the road. One can notice the slow movement of a restored heavy-duty manipulator as it positions a vintage engine block with millisecond precision during a rebuild. The journey through this industrial history starts with a machine that defies initial expectations, while the final entry represents the absolute pinnacle of rare American engineering. The heavy steel doors of these machines close with a solid metallic resonance that signals the end of an era of purely mechanical transport. This historical phase of the trucking industry concludes here, preserving the legacy of the giants that once dominated the open road. 1962 was the year International Harvester launched the Loadstar series into the industrial market. Why did this specific model become one of the longest-lasting vehicles of its era? At first glance, the design appeared simple, but its endurance was rooted in a chassis built to withstand the rigors of rural environments and small-town infrastructure. The process of moving heavy loads was managed by a 392 cubic inch Vate engine. This displacement equals approximately 6.4 liters of volume. It is visible how the heavy engine block occupies the space beneath the long hood, generating 197 horsepower. But this is just the beginning. The engine produced over 310 pound-feet of torque, focusing on raw pulling power rather than velocity. 60 miles per hour was the maximum speed this machine could achieve on open roads. The equipment was never intended for rapid transit, but rather for the reliable completion of labor-intensive tasks. One can notice the deliberate movement of the mechanical components as the 5-speed manual transmission engages. These units often featured heavy-duty auxiliary gear options to multiply the available torque for steep grades or soft soil. It only looks obvious that a truck of this size would require a complex setup, but in reality, it relied on a straightforward leaf spring suspension. Most units operated with a rear-wheel drive configuration, though the factory did produce 4x4 versions for specialized heavy-duty applications. Transition to the next level. The vehicle possessed a narrow cab and smooth body lines that defined its classic visual profile. Because the engineering was focused on utility, the interior remained entirely free of luxury features or unnecessary distractions. One can notice how the steel frame supports a gross vehicle weight rating that exceeded 28,000 pounds in specific configurations. The deep rumble of the Vate engine became a standard acoustic element across American backroads and agricultural landscapes. It served as a versatile platform for school buses, fire engines, and factory haulers alike. Everything only gets more complicated as the decades pass. Very few of these units survived the passage of time in pristine condition due to the extreme environments in which they worked. This rarity makes a fully restored specimen an exceptional sight in the modern day. The truck earned a legendary reputation among veteran operators as an unstoppable workhorse capable of managing any payload. In certain small towns, a few of these machines continue to operate daily, maintaining their original function as if the mechanical evolution of the last 60 years had never occurred. The material remains a testament to mid-century durability before the industry moved toward the next phase of aesthetic and power development. This classic powerhouse represents a specific era of mechanical resilience. The narrative now shifts toward a different category of heavy machinery characterized by bold visual presence and high road authority. 435 horsepower and over 1,400 pound-feet of torque define the mechanical heart of the Western Star 4900. Why did this specific machine earn a reputation for near-hand-built craftsmanship starting in the 1980s? While other heavy-duty giants were moving toward mass-market assembly, the Western Star 4900 maintained a meticulous attention to detail during its assembly in the United States of America. This process gave the truck a distinct personality that separated it from its contemporaries on the highway. It only looks obvious that a truck needs power, but in reality, the choice of the Detroit Diesel 8V92 V8 engine transformed this vehicle into a legend. One can notice how the 12.1 liters of displacement provide the necessary force for demanding logistics. The equipment gradually reaches a top speed of 75 miles per hour, allowing for aggressive acceleration even when hauling massive weight over long distances. But this is just the beginning. Operators typically manage this power through a 13-speed manual transmission. This gearbox configuration granted the driver absolute control when navigating steep mountain grades or pulling oversized trailers. The chassis utilized a 6x4 drive system paired with parabolic leaf springs specifically engineered to withstand the vibrations and stresses of rugged environments. It gets more complex further on. Visually, the 4900 functioned as a bold technical statement. Its squared-off fenders and rectangular headlights created a silhouette that remained unmistakable in rearview mirrors. The camera glides along the polished chrome grille, which served as the centerpiece of its commanding exterior presence. Inside, the environment shifted toward luxury, featuring rich wood accents and a comprehensive array of analog dials. These elements combined to create a cockpit feel that was considered the pinnacle of driver comfort during that era. The process is only gaining momentum as these machines found their way into the most punishing industries. Independent truckers utilized the customizable nature of the frame for logging, mining, and specialized long-haul freight. At first glance, it seems simple to find an original model today, but in reality, pristine 4900s are rare gems. Many units from that period were eventually modified, parted out, or dismantled, leaving very few examples with their original factory configurations intact. Everything only gets more complicated when considering the extreme climates where these trucks still operate. In the remote regions of Alaska and Canada, long 4900 models continue to perform daily work decades after leaving the factory. It is visible how the structural integrity of the steel and the reliability of the drivetrain allow them to survive in sub-zero temperatures. This serves as physical proof of the durability built into the initial design. The brute strength of the Western Star 4900 established a legacy that remains visible on the road today. From here, the narrative transition moves to the next machine that helped define the technical landscape of modern American trucking. 100% of the modern American logistical infrastructure traces its lineage back to the mid-century engineering shifts represented by the White Freightliner. Why did this specific machine become the definitive turning point for the trucking industry during the 1950s and 1960s? At first glance, it appeared to be merely another heavy vehicle, but in reality, the collaboration between Freightliner and the classic White Motor Company introduced a radical departure from conventional long-nose designs. This partnership birthed a line that prioritized maximum payload and spatial economy over traditional aesthetics. Innovation began with the implementation of the flat front and cab-over-engine configuration. The chassis design allowed for a shorter overall vehicle length while maintaining a massive cargo capacity, which was revolutionary for the era. One of the most technically significant iterations of this machine utilized the Detroit Diesel 6 V71 power plant. This six-cylinder V engine displaced 7 liters and generated 238 horsepower. One can notice how the mechanical components are packed tightly beneath the cab floor. With approximately 630 pound-feet of torque, the truck was engineered for relentless duty cycles rather than velocity. 62 miles per hour was the maximum speed this heavy hauler could achieve on level ground. It gets more complex further on. A 10-speed manual transmission served as the mechanical heart of the drivetrain, providing the driver with the necessary gear ratios to navigate long-distance routes across varying North American terrains. The camera glides along the frame where a leaf spring-based suspension system carries the immense weight of the freight. While typically configured with rear-wheel drive, certain specialized units underwent adaptation for specific industrial applications. This compact layout granted the vehicle superior maneuverability in restricted urban environments, which served as a primary competitive advantage during the expansion of the interstate system. Visually, the machine is defined by a square cab and an exposed aluminum frame that resists the elements. The high-pitched hum of the two-stroke Detroit engine remains a distinct acoustic signature that is instantly recognizable to veteran operators. These trucks were the backbone of interstate shipping fleets, functioning as the primary tools that constructed the modern freight network. But this is just the beginning. The impact of the White Freightliner is still visible in contemporary cab-over designs that utilize the same foundational spatial logic. Original models are now exceptionally rare because the majority of the fleet was either scrapped or subjected to heavy modifications over decades of service. Restoration enthusiasts often spend years hunting for original components that have become nearly impossible to source in the current market. Only a few people are aware that the White Freightliner was among the first heavy trucks to be featured in American television commercials. This media presence helped solidify its legacy in the public consciousness beyond the boundaries of the highway. The process of evolution in truck design does not end here. The next vehicle in the sequence integrates raw mechanical power with one of the most aggressive structural designs ever engineered for the road. 1976 was the year Ford officially entered the high-stakes arena of heavy-duty long-haul transport with the introduction of the LTL9000. Why did this specific model manage to challenge the established giants of the American trucking industry so effectively? The answer lies in its unique combination of an extended cab and a massive, elongated hood, which instantly transformed the vehicle into a symbol of highway power and aesthetic dominance. But this was just the beginning. Engineers equipped the machine with a 14-liter inline-six Cummins NTC 400 engine, a powerhouse capable of generating 400 horsepower. One can notice how the chassis remains stable even when the engine produces over 1,475 pound-feet of torque. This mechanical strength allowed the truck to transport immense loads across thousands of miles while maintaining speeds exceeding 75 miles per hour. It seems simple to operate such a machine at first glance, but in reality, the transmission required a high level of technical proficiency. The drivetrain featured a 13-speed manual gearbox, and certain specialized configurations utilized a twin-stick shift arrangement. This setup demanded precise coordination and manual dexterity from the driver to navigate through the gear ranges. The process is only gaining momentum. Heavy-duty applications necessitated the use of twin rear axles to distribute the weight of the cargo evenly across the frame. Reinforced semi-elliptic springs provided the necessary suspension dampening, ensuring that the structural integrity of the truck remained intact under extreme stress. It is visible how the metal components of the suspension system bear the brunt of the road while keeping the massive frame level. Visually, the LTL9000 utilized a distinct X-shaped chrome grille and recessed headlights to create a near-military presence on the asphalt. The oversized hood rises significantly above the ground, highlighting the sheer scale of the internal components. Inside the cab, the environment shifted toward operator comfort, featuring air conditioning, padded seating, and a dashboard filled with comprehensive analog gauges. Everything only gets more complicated as the truck transitioned from a mere tool into a favorite for coast-to-coast owner-operators. Durability and comfort solidified its status as a legend during a period defined by raw mechanical power rather than computerized systems. Production of the model eventually ceased in the 1990s, making well-preserved examples exceedingly rare in the modern era. At first glance, these trucks might appear as relics, but in reality, they represent the peak of an era free from electronic intervention. $120,000 is the price a single restored unit recently fetched at a specialized collector auction. This serves as a testament to the lasting technical and cultural appeal of what many consider to be the toughest vehicle Ford ever manufactured. The truck captures a specific moment in industrial history when personality and mechanical grit were the primary metrics of success. The molten stream of automotive history continues as the next vehicle emerges from the specialized environment of mining operations. 127 years of history began when Autocar was established in 1897, making it one of the oldest manufacturers of commercial vehicles in the United States. Why did the DC100 series, introduced in the 1960s, become a symbol of this industrial legacy? While standard trucks were limited by light frames, the DC100 was engineered specifically for extreme duty applications in the most demanding sectors like construction and mining. This vehicle functioned as a heavy-duty platform built to operate in environments where standard machinery would fail. The power came from a 14-liter inline-six Cummins NH220 engine. It is visible how the engine delivers approximately 220 horsepower and over 735 pound-feet of torque to the drivetrain. This mechanical heart allowed the machine to maintain consistent pulling power regardless of the incline or the weight of the cargo. The top speed was limited to around 55 miles per hour, but the primary focus was on structural endurance rather than velocity. Equipped with a 10-speed manual transmission featuring short gear ratios, the DC100 climbed steep grades under full load without any hesitation. This mechanical configuration prioritized high torque delivery over speed. One can notice how the reinforced leaf springs compress under tens of tons of weight, while the standard rear-wheel drive system maintains traction. Some specialized models for off-road use featured triple rear axles to distribute the massive pressure of the load. A square body, thick steel bumpers, and a boxy cab design defined its utilitarian appearance. But this is just the beginning of its structural characteristics. The roar of the Cummins engine echoed through rock quarries and along unpaved roads as the equipment gradually moved massive quantities of earth. These vehicles served in infrastructure projects, rock hauling, mining operations, and even within military logistics. The DC100 earned a reputation for withstanding decades of physical abuse in the harshest global environments while remaining operational. It gets more complex further on as the survival rate of these machines is examined. Locating an original DC100 in good condition today is nearly impossible due to the nature of their service life. Most units were scrapped after being worn down by decades of relentless industrial use. Only a few survivors remain, often having been painstakingly restored by specialized truck historians and dedicated collectors. One can notice the precision in a beautifully restored DC100, currently serving as a centerpiece at a United States engineering museum. This exhibit stands as a technical tribute to the rugged charm and industrial heritage of the vehicle. The restoration process preserves the mechanical history of the 20th century. Thus ends the account of one of the most durable machines in the history of American heavy transport. 350 horsepower and over 1,100 pound-feet of torque defined the mechanical heart of a machine that dominated the 1960s and 70s. Why did the Diamond Rio C116 become such an enduring symbol of American heavy trucking durability? The answer lies in its ability to combine industrial resilience with a visual boldness that remains rare, even at contemporary classic truck shows. One can notice the massive 14-liter inline-six Cummins NTC 350 engine vibrating slightly under the hood. It gets more complex further on. The transmission system utilized a 13-speed manual gearbox paired with a heavy-duty clutch to manage the immense power output. It only looks obvious to operate such a machine, but in reality, the tight shifting gearbox was essential for maintaining momentum during cross-country hauls. The truck could easily maintain speeds exceeding 70 miles per hour even when pulling a maximum capacity load. Semi-elliptic springs formed the core of the suspension system, providing the necessary tension to support the chassis under extreme stress. The process is only gaining momentum. This setup worked in tandem with a 6x4 drivetrain configuration, which allowed the vehicle to pull double or triple trailers with technical ease. One can notice how the square lines and distinctive cutout fenders create a silhouette that is immediately recognizable from a distance. The front grille stands out as a focal point of the industrial design. A hood ornament featuring the Diamond Rio logo served as a badge of honor rather than a mere branding element. Inside the cab, the layout remained simple and functional to prioritize the operator's needs during long shifts. The elevated driving position provided a clear view of the road, while the straightforward controls ensured reliability in high-pressure environments. Independent operators and mining companies favored this model because the low maintenance mechanics reduced operational downtime significantly. Everything only gets more complicated after the company ceased operations in 1974. Diamond Rio trucks became increasingly rare as the production line stopped and the supply of new parts vanished. Many units were eventually dismantled for components or abandoned to oxidation in open fields. At first glance, these trucks are relics of the past, but in reality, the surviving units have transitioned into highly sought-after collector items. One specific unit gained cinematic fame in the 1978 film Convoy. The equipment gradually became a visual shorthand for the rebellious trucker culture that defined that era of transportation history. Today, only a handful of these machines remain in operational condition across the country. The metal stays preserved in the hands of enthusiasts who maintain the original technical specifications. Thus, the Diamond Rio C116 concludes its journey from a common industrial workhorse to a rare artifact of mechanical engineering. 1961 marked the debut of the Kenworth W900, a machine that remains one of the most recognizable heavy vehicles on the planet to this day. Why did this specific model become a cultural symbol of American transportation for over 60 years? While its long hood and timeless design suggest a focus on aesthetics, the true reason for its longevity lies in a mechanical architecture that stayed in production for decades due to sheer engineering reliability. The truck is a living legend among operators. One of the most sought-after configurations of this rig featured the Cummins Big Cam 400. This 14-liter inline-six engine delivered 400 horsepower and more than 1,475 pounds-feet of torque. One can notice the steady acceleration as the machine maintains speeds above 75 miles per hour, even when hauling a full load. This massive pulling power is managed through an 18-speed manual transmission, a feature that experienced drivers valued for providing absolute control over the mechanical output of the rig. The chassis typically utilizes a 6x4 drive system. It gets more complex further on. Kenworth often equipped these units with an air glide suspension system to stabilize serious long-haul loads. Visually, the machine is a technical showstopper defined by a stretched hood, vertical chrome exhaust stacks, and wide fenders that flank the iconic T-shaped grille. The camera glides along the polished surfaces, highlighting a presence that is unmistakable on the interstate. The low, deep rumble of the 14-liter engine produces a signature acoustic frequency that serves as a constant backdrop on American highways. Independent drivers and heavy-haul fleets favored the platform for its customization potential. But this is just the beginning. At industry exhibitions, a classic version of this truck invariably draws a significant crowd of enthusiasts. It seems simple to find such a legendary vehicle, but in reality, locating a unit in its original factory condition is an immense challenge for modern collectors. Most of these machines were heavily modified over decades of service, making untouched models extremely rare and highly prized. Hollywood recognized this commanding presence by featuring the truck in major productions like Lethal Weapon 2. The equipment gradually became a staple in music videos and national commercials, cementing its status as the ultimate representative of the industry. The process of its evolution does not end at this stage. From here, the narrative of heavy transport moves toward another contender that might be the ultimate classic truck of them all. 1967 was the year the Peterbilt 359 was launched, marking the beginning of what would become the most cherished vehicle in the history of American transport. Why did this specific machine capture the collective imagination of owner-operators and collectors alike? One might assume it was merely the aesthetic of the long nose and chrome finishes, but the reality lies in a combination of engineering brute force and an unmistakable silhouette that redefined the heavy-duty segment. The truck became a favored subject for filmmakers and serious enthusiasts who recognized its unique profile as the gold standard of the industry. It seems simple to view it as just a transport tool, but the mechanical heart of the 359 tells a different story. One of the most formidable and sought-after configurations involved the installation of the Caterpillar 3408 V8 engine. This massive 18-liter power plant generated 450 horsepower and reached a peak of 1,620 pound-feet of torque. Such specifications allowed the truck to traverse the continental United States with sheer mechanical power, maintaining performance even while navigating the most grueling and steep geographical routes. The process of managing this energy is only gaining momentum as one considers the drivetrain. A 15-speed manual transmission was paired with the engine to provide the operator with total control and smooth gear transitions across various load conditions. The 6x4 drive system and heavy-duty suspension components were engineered specifically for demanding freight and extended periods of operation behind the steering wheel. One can notice how the equipment manages to provide surprising cabin comfort despite the immense physical scale of the chassis. But this is just the beginning of its technical identity. Visual identification of the 359 is immediate due to several trademark engineering features. The extended hood assembly, dual vertical exhaust stacks, and a full chrome radiator grille became the defining elements of the model's culture. During the 1970s and 1980s, the truck evolved into a genuine industrial phenomenon among drivers who viewed these machines as representations of power. The camera glides along the polished surfaces of custom paint jobs that have become synonymous with the lineage. It gets more complex further on when analyzing the current market and historical preservation of the fleet. Because production officially concluded in 1987, surviving examples are now categorized as rare and highly significant assets. Original condition units command incredible value today, as many remaining models underwent heavy technical alterations over decades of service. It is difficult to attend a truck show within the United States without observing at least one immaculately restored 359 occupying the central spotlight. At first glance, the connection to popular media might seem secondary, but it solidified the truck as a cultural icon. While the 1971 film Duel utilized a Peterbilt 281, it was the 359 that eventually became the primary choice for Hollywood productions. The vehicle appeared in dozens of films and television programs, cementing its status as the visual soul of the American highway. This legacy of the 359 serves as a foundation for understanding the most significant classics in trucking history. 1953 marked the official debut of the Mack B61, a machine that eventually established itself as one of the most legendary heavy-duty vehicles ever engineered by the manufacturer. Why did this specific model become the definitive benchmark for industrial endurance? It only looks obvious that a truck is merely a tool for transport, but in reality, the B61 served as the foundational architect for the entire visual and mechanical identity of the Mack brand. The design featured distinctively rounded fenders and the now iconic bulldog hood ornament, elements that transformed the vehicle into a global symbol of mechanical toughness and classic American industrial style. The process of the Mack B61's integration into the workforce was only gaining momentum as it entered nearly every conceivable trucking sector. One can notice the heavy-duty chassis performing consistently across diverse environments, from the high-intensity demands of construction sites to the grueling endurance of cross-country hauling operations. The most iconic technical configuration of this model utilized the Mack Thermodyne End 673 power plant. This 11-liter inline-six engine produced 211 horsepower and generated approximately 790 pounds-feet of torque. While these output figures remain modest by contemporary industrial standards, the mechanical efficiency allowed the truck to ascend steep gradients with a maximum payload while maintaining cruising speeds between 55 and 62 miles per hour. It seems simple to operate such a machine, but in reality, managing the power required a 10-speed manual transmission frequently equipped with a specialized splitter gear for enhanced torque control. The structural foundation was built upon a rugged steel frame, offering configurations in either rear-wheel drive or a 6x4 drive system, depending on the specific requirements of the vocational task. Everything only gets more complicated when analyzing the longevity of these units, as many remained in active service for several decades. Visually, the B61 is characterized by vintage aesthetics, with headlamps integrated directly into the sweep of the fenders and the raised bulldog badge, providing an instantly recognizable profile. The engine produces a deep rhythmic acoustic signature that is audible long before the vehicle physically appears on the horizon. This truck earned a reputation for being virtually unbreakable while operating in the sectors of mining, timber extraction, and regional freight logistics. Simple mechanical systems combined with a reinforced frame turned the B61 into a functional rolling tank that ignored the limitations of the era. Today, locating a Mack B61 in its original factory condition is an extremely rare occurrence. Over the course of many years, a significant number of these units were either stripped for components or retrofitted with modern parts to keep them operational. The few surviving original units are now highly protected by specialized collectors, particularly within the United States and Australia. But this is just the beginning of the truck's legacy. The B61 is significant not only for its physical durability, but because it codified the visual language of the manufacturer, including the bulldog mascot, which remains the brand's representative symbol to this day. One can notice the reverence for this model during public exhibitions, such as a beautifully restored unit that appeared at a trucking convention in Las Vegas, where it was received with a standing ovation. The transition to the next level of rarity begins now, as the history of the B61 leads toward an even rarer ghost from the past that remains hidden from most. One of the most legendary old-school American trucks ever built, the Brockway 361, occupies the definitive top position on this list. Produced by the Brockway Motor Company from the 1950s until 1977, this vehicle remains a pinnacle of craftsmanship and industrial brute strength. Why does this specific model command such a high level of reverence among collectors and historians today? The answer lies in a rare combination of mechanical history and extreme scarcity. While many trucks from that era were mass-produced by larger conglomerates, the sudden closure of the company in 1977 ensured that these machines would become remnants of a vanished era. One can notice the commanding presence of the tall hood and the distinctively squared-off lines that define its unforgettable silhouette. Engineers designed the 361 to accommodate various power plants, but the version equipped with the Cummins NH250 remains the standout configuration. This 14-liter inline-six engine produces approximately 250 horsepower and generates more than 885 pounds-feet of torque. It seems simple to prioritize speed in modern logistics, but in reality, the 361 was engineered for constant, reliable pulling power. The equipment gradually reaches its maximum velocity near 62 miles per hour, emphasizing torque over acceleration. But this is just the beginning of its technical profile. A 10-speed manual transmission manages the delivery of power through a shift pattern known for being both tough and exceptionally precise. The chassis utilizes heavy-duty leaf springs to support the massive loads typical of its 6x4 drive configuration. This mechanical setup was specifically built for the rigors of construction sites, municipal maintenance, and heavy industrial transport routes. One can notice how the wide grille prominently features the Brockway badge, a symbol of a brand that operated with independence until its final days. Inside, the cab was remarkably spacious for its time, featuring a functional dashboard and seats built to withstand decades of heavy use. Everything only gets more complicated when considering the rarity of these surviving units. The 361 earned its reputation for dependability across the Northeast United States, where it was once a common sight in city fleets and factory zones. Restoring a 361 has become a massive logistical challenge because the company shut down following disputes with Mack, its parent organization. When production ceased, the supply of original parts dried up almost immediately, leaving owners without any official aftermarket support. This lack of components has turned every surviving truck into a mechanical treasure. It only looks obvious to call it a classic, but in reality, it is a true icon lost in time. The process is only gaining momentum as enthusiasts gather annually in Cortland, New York, the original headquarters of the manufacturer. During the dedicated truck show, a running 361 is treated with the same respect as a Hollywood A-lister. The camera glides along the polished metal of the wide grille as the truck rolls into the exhibition area. Its status as the rarest of American classics is cemented by the fact that most of its counterparts disappeared shortly after the 1970s. Each year, the gathering serves as a reminder of the craftsmanship that once defined the industrial landscape of the region. The Brockway 361 remains a symbol of an era where durability was the primary engineering metric. This legendary machine concludes its journey as a masterpiece of heavy-duty design. 100 years of industrial evolution are etched into the heavy steel frames and reinforced axles of these American machines. This narrative has traced a specialized path through a significant chapter of transportation history, where engineering and physical labor converged to create the foundation of the logistics network. Why did these specific mechanical configurations survive decades of unrelenting service while others vanished? These vehicles represent a period when durability was the primary engineering objective, resulting in machines built from high-strength steel and powered by engines that defied the typical lifespan of industrial equipment. It only looks obvious that these trucks were merely tools for hauling cargo. In reality, they functioned as mobile monuments to a time when technical precision and mechanical simplicity allowed for field repairs in the most remote regions. One can notice how the paint on a vintage cab fades unevenly, yet the structural integrity of the chassis remains uncompromised by the passage of time. The equipment gradually adapted to shifting technological standards, but the core mechanics of the steering assemblies and manual transmissions remained a testament to an era of direct mechanical control. Machines that once conquered the wilderness and the most impossible terrains now stand as rolling legacies of American engineering. These giants, constructed with thousands of pounds of reinforced metal and forged components, successfully endured the brutal test of time and radical shifts in industrial technology. Everything only gets more complicated when analyzing the sheer scale of the components used in their assembly, from the massive cooling systems to the heavy-duty leaf springs designed to support 50,000 pounds of weight. One can notice how the light reflects off the chrome of a restored radiator grille, a visual contrast to the rugged, grease-stained engines hidden beneath the hoods. It gets more complex further on, as these vehicles served as the very backbone of the national transportation infrastructure, moving essential materials across thousands of miles of unpaved roads and steep mountain passes. This was a period defined by a specific lifestyle centered around the maintenance and operation of heavy machinery that required constant attention and technical expertise. The process of preserving these legends ensures that the mechanical history of the highway remains accessible for future generations of engineers and enthusiasts. It is visible how the massive tires and high-clearance frames allowed these trucks to rule the wilderness where standard vehicles would fail. Each machine carries the history of the materials it transported and the environments it mastered, from the heat of the southern plains to the freezing conditions of the northern corridors. The material and historical data collected here serves to highlight the machines that once dominated every highway and industrial site. This documentation of heavy machinery and classic trucks continues to expand as more technical details of their operation are uncovered. Thus, the analysis of these legendary vehicles reaches a natural conclusion, preserving the technical record of the mechanical power that shaped the modern landscape. The metal remains silent, but the legacy of its performance continues to stand as a benchmark for industrial strength and reliability.